Kent, we're going to talk about, we're just going to do some summing up of your career in this last segment.
Okay.
Give me a, what's your career when you look back on it?
It's hard to pick. I enjoyed what I did. I never had a day that I didn't want to get up and go to work. And I didn't care if I worked 5 hours, 16 hours, 20 hours. It was still enjoyment because I loved what I did. I loved the people I worked with. I never had any great arguments with anybody. It was just my whole life turned around because where I started laying on the floor, the fruition, here I am doing what I envisioned in my early life. And it just kind of all came to life for me. It meant it wasn't the money, unless I liked it, but every show I did, I found enjoyment in it somehow. I mean, some shows, you felt, Michael always had a saying, they all can't be perfect, but you do the best you can. And I always agreed with him. You know, it just was an experience that I'd like to live again. I'm not going to. I'm not prepared to do it again. I mean, the new technology with tape is wonderful. I would not understand it all, but I could learn it, but I'm not going to. At 89, I'm not going to do it again, believe me. But I just loved work. I always did as a child. I always never wanted, I wanted to feel like I've done something. I was the worst student in the world, but doing something with your own hands made it come to life and gave me the inspiration to do it.
Yeah. When you think back over a career that really started in the early 1950s,
Yeah.
What were the reflecting back, what were the biggest changes you saw in the industry?
Well, two different kinds of changes. Technically, it got nothing but better. With the advent of color, the advent of tape you have now, look what we're doing here today with 2 lights and a camera. And all that.
And no tape in the camera.
Oh, good. No?
No.
Oh. But it just, that technology is all new. You don't need a cherry picker. You got a drone you can set up. I mean, things of that of today are wonderful. It was just the other part of growing up and doing things the way I felt it should be done. I always liked to get things done with my hands. And all my life I worked. I started working in 7th grade and never quit. That's true.
Yeah.
And it's just, I really can't put it in words. I mean, I've enjoyed every bit of it.
Technology certainly has grown and evolved and changed, has made the tools of filmmaking so much more powerful, smaller, more sensitive, more efficient. How about the people that drive the business? What's your sense of the evolution of the people that drive the business?
I think it sucks. People when I started, all the people, program people, people that were going to hire shows, look at shows, they all knew show business. That was they grew up doing show business, either as a producer, doing vaudeville, doing whatever, actors, but they all do their craft. You don't have that today. You've got young kids, you've got shows that don't mean anything, a lot of swear words, a lot of dirty jokes, a lot of crap that they think is wonderful. I don't. It just doesn't, the older days were better for me because I love the people, you respected the people you work for. If I went to NBC and had to work for somebody there now, well, we did get in to talk about GE. I think that's in the book, but they just were terrible. They knew light bulbs, but they didn't know film. And I had all kinds of problems. They finally came around to me, but it was a mess.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I just, and frankly, the more shows I did, the more knowledge I could put to use.
Of course.
I had the sound crew on Dinah Shore's show that started to complain about food and lodging in Paris. And I walked out one day and they're still grousing. And I said, here's your cab fare and here's your ticket to get to the airport, you're out of here. This is the start of a day's work. And Alex Garoga became the recorder and mixer, and I became the boom man. Now I became the boom man only because one at NBC, the name that union that handles the engineering, a couple of times went on strike. So we went down to a school to learn a craft. Well, I learned how to run a sound boom, so it was natural. I called it scab tech in real, but
You do what you got to do.
I did sound effects.
Really? Wow.
So,
Wow. Who are the biggest mentors in your career when you look back on that? And you've mentioned a bunch of them during this interview, but just sort of take
a mentor to me would be the man that started me,
Sure.
Dr. Dodgy. Without his input into my life, I don't think I'd have a life. My brother and I thought of buying a farm, a dairy farm.
At what point?
This was, I was still in, he was at college and I was at prep school.
So you considered a dairy farm, but got into show business thanks to Dr. Naji.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His input to give me, he gave me the knowledge that he had.
Yeah.
And I could sit down with him. I never had to, we'd be traveling in the car, and he'd ask me questions. And he'd say, oh, write me a couple of hundred words on that. That's the only classroom I had, other than my English class,
Yeah.
which did go well. Do you want that story?
Well, I get, if it's contrasting, it's a compare and contrast in your life, so sure. Tell me the English class story.
Okay. I had English. It was the first class after lunch at the Julius Hart School. Next door to the school was a building, was the YWCA women's building, but they had a restaurant. Now I got a job as a busboy from 12 to 1, paid me 70 cents an hour and a free lunch. That's the killing point. That was the sick clicker. Now there was a 5-minute bell and a 10-minute bell. I was always in the English class between the 5 and the 10. And this English teacher said, I want everybody in my class by the first bell. And I went to him, explained the problem. He said, I don't care, then quit. Well, I wanted to give him that, but I did. I went to the dean and talked to the dean. He says, I'll straighten it out. He never did. Well, one day, I walked in between the bells, and he says, well, there's an F for McCray. So I picked up my books and started to walk out. He said, where are you going? I said, if I've already got an F for today, why should I sit around and listen to you? Now, he happened to be a singer and a tenor, and he was doing one of the operas. And it was an opera where there were street cleaners in New York were being put out of business by trucks and stuff. I played the horse, incidentally. I was the front end of a horse. Trying to find somebody for the rear end was a little tough. I finally found a girl that would do it, and we got in the costume. She hit my butt. She says, one mistake and I'm out of here. But anyways, this teacher is a tenor, and he's supposed to pick up this pigeon and sing to it. The audience, such a phony. Tenors are bad. And the next night, he went to pick up the pigeon, and I nailed the sucker to the floor. So we had to sing this whole song looking at a pigeon down here. He couldn't look at the audience. And he got mad at me. He said, you did that on purpose. I said, I didn't do that. I played Dickie the Dunce.
Was the horse shaking as you were laughing inside the horse watching this?
Yeah.
That would have been fun. That would have been fun. I think if you're someone else I think of who is a wonderful mentor to you, or certainly a great colleague for you, is Fenton Coe, who has come up again and again and again in your
Fenton
conversation.
Coe, I would not have been in the film division without him. I liked him dearly. I loved him. But I also hated him. He was a company man.
Okay.
I spent 7 months in Europe, and I came home Thanksgiving Day, and went in and talked to him and called me back, and he says, I want you to do a pilot coming up. And I said, I'd really like to take my vacation. I said, if you want me to do the pilot, I'll do the pilot and take my vacation in January. He said, well, I can't allow that. I said, what's the matter? He says, well, the NBC rule is if you don't get your vacation, you don't get it, it can't be forward to the next year. I said, Fenton, I've been away for 7 months. No one's missed me. If I don't show up for 3 weeks, you think somebody's going to be mad? He says, but that's the rule. I said, well, you know what you could do for the rule, and you know what you could do with a pilot. I'm going on vacation. And I did. And it was just little things like that that he was just
so not exactly a fond mentor for you,
but he
important,
was.
but so
He
yeah,
was.
right, I got it.
Yeah.
He was critical to you, but he was also annoying to you.
Yes.
All right,
Yeah.
that's fair enough.
NBC wanted to send me out of some other survey. I forget which one now. And I went to get some money for advance. And they said, no, you spend your money and we'll reimburse you when you get back. I said, I haven't got money. I'm not a friggin' bank. Either you give me the money or don't go. And I went back to Fenton. I said, I'm not going. This stupid idiot over in accounting won't give me an advance. Well, he straightened that out, but I mean, it just,
Yeah.
the networks were,
Well, they're bureaucratic, and so the networks are bureaucratic, and they have rules, and
Yeah.
they're trying to manage tens of thousands of employees, and it's challenging.
My one sad comment, Michael wanted to do one more series called Us. And we shot the pilot, and actually Sony sponsored it, and or put up the money for it. And Michael first took the script to NBC, and he met with some people, and they looked at him and they said, we don't need you anymore. After Bonanza, Little House, Highway to Heaven, 30 years of top quality work, and they have the gall to say, we don't need you anymore. That's the kind of people they are today. And it broke Michael's heart. It really did. Mine as well, because I wanted him to be happy.
Sure, sure.
And so we went to CBS. They looked at the script and gave us a 22-order pickup.
Wow.
We did the pilot, that's when he got sick.
Yeah, right.
And that was one of the saddest days of my life.
Yeah. You had many great experiences with NBC, going back to, to all the way through your career.
Brad
But at the end, yeah.
was a gem.
Yes, he was a lovely
And
man.
a lovely man.
Yeah.
And knew his craft.
Yep, he did.
Every year, when we were doing Highway, he would come to us wherever we were shooting. And we'd have lunch, or I'd get a motel room, and he had a couple of his people that worked for him. We'd sit down, where should we go next year?
Yeah.
And he had all these ideas, and Michael said, I like those ideas. I like, what about this? What about this? He was telling them stories he hadn't even written them yet.
Yeah.
But they said, oh, that's good, we're fine. You're hooked, you're gone for another year.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
but Brandon was good, they were all good. But today's market, you don't get that.
Yeah.
People don't know what they're doing. You ask them to put together a stage show. They've never done it. They've never gotten off their duff. They're accountants and they're lawyers. And it's a sad experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Coming in, well, I think like we can predict maybe, if you chatted with young people today who are interested in pursuing a career in the industry, doing what you did, what kind of advice do you give a young person today entering this business?
It's tough to give advice. I could give them pointers of what they should do, but they have to learn their craft their way. Don't do what I did, unless you could copy what I did if you want to, but you got to have your own mind.
Yeah.
It's got to dictate where you're going to go. I can't, just because I did it this way, would work today. You don't have a board.
Yeah.
So you have a computer.
Yeah. It sounds to me
I'd still be putting it on a board if I was able.
Sure. What I get throughout this conversation, having known you for 30 plus years,
Right.
is your career was really about preparation. There was a huge commitment to preparation, understanding the process, and following through.
I enjoyed taking a script and putting it on a board and laying it out. The assistant director would look at my board, copy it sometimes. They would do it in more detail. Mine was a board that reflected the cost, but also reflected location or whatever. But it's just, I couldn't work in today's market. I don't think it's like, just as an added story or added comment. I don't know if you ever watched the show Deadwood. I hated it. I hated the language. It took 12 to 50 days to shoot the hour show. And that's only because now you have camera assist, where you have a tape machine under the lens, and all the producers, all the writers are sitting in the corner, and they're looking at they would roll the tape back and look at it, the director, well, geez, maybe we should add a line here. 45 minutes go by and nothing happened. You can't do a show that way. They're doing them, but I never did. I asked Mike once if he wanted video assist. He says no. And he always sat on it, if he wasn't in the scene, sat on an apple box. He says, if I could see it in their eyes, I know I got it. I mean, that's the difference.
Yeah.
Glenn Feldman, Dean Wilson's assistant, was doing one of the 3 camera shows. Every morning he had to put out 40 chairs for the producers, the writers, and the cast. 40 chairs. And then they wouldn't let him leave them on the stage. He had to put them back in the truck, and they complained about he's going into too much overtime. You know, there's no,
Yeah.
you can't have it, just,
Yeah. Too many cooks.
yeah.
Too many cooks sometimes. We've touched on it, but I think of things that you did to just keep things fun and light. You know, the little open bar that would happen at RAP. People
Right.
would have a quick drink before they went home. You took, you know, you threw nice parties at the end of seasons. We did racehorse, you know, trip to the races. We did just nice things that communicated to people that they were a part of the team. And you wanted to say thank you.
Yeah, I don't know if you know the story. It should probably cut it out. But we went to the racetrack. First year, we had the van full. Next year, we had 2 or 3 cars full. The last year, we had 3 bus loads going to the track, and I had the special seating. And they have these big elevators, and they took a whole bunch of us up, and the guy in the elevator said, let us out. He says, I'm going down for another group of your people. I said, fine. So he went down, elevator came up, the doors opened, and I booed them. I turned around. This is none of our crew at all, total strangers. So that kind of backfired.
Wow, that was quite a mood in those days, too. That must have been quite a mood in those days.
That was.
It was a full moon.
That was a full moon.
Yeah. You know, I want to talk a little bit about the major relationships. You know, for as long as I've known you, Susan's been a part of your life.
Yes.
You know, you two are a wonderful team.
Well,
and this has to have been Susan's been a part of your success for a long time.
Susan's dad brought her in. I liked her. It was somebody, and I was married at the time, it was somebody that I could go to work out a problem, because she understood what I was doing.
Yeah.
If she had problems with number of cast or money, she could come to me. So our relationship was based on the work that we were doing. And lots of times I'd take her to dinner, lots of times I wouldn't. But it was just a long association before my own life it turned sour. My first wife did not appreciate the hours that I kept.
Sure.
She was brought up. Her father was a school teacher. Her mother worked as an accountant. They had dinner every night at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
At 5 o'clock, I'm just getting started.
Yeah.
And all through our early life, that was always a big complaint.
That's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't blame, I was wrong. I mean, it was my fault for doing it. I didn't blame her. She had her own feelings.
Yeah.
But I just couldn't, she didn't like getting phone calls 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, right.
You know,
Sure.
But that was part of the business.
That was part of the gig, yeah.
You had to do it, you had to do it.
Yeah.
So I was partly to blame for the separation. And then,
It's never just one person.
no.
Yeah.
No, I was
Yeah.
partly to blame, and I
Yeah.
admit that, I'm sorry about it. She brought up, she had a great deal to do with it, bringing up our 4 children, which she did a good job at that,
Yeah,
and I always appreciated that.
of course.
And therefore, I have 8 grandchildren and 8 great-grandchildren.
Wow.
And I had 4 children. But I just, I don't know, it's just, with Susan, it's always been. Now, we've been married 30-some years. We've never had an argument. Never. We might disagree on a subject, but we always went to bed. It was never a knocked-out, drag-out argument.
Right.
Because I won't put up with that,
Yeah,
and she won't either.
yeah. Yeah.
So she'd probably run me over in her scooter, or I'd run over in hers, but I couldn't be happier with her.
Yeah.
She's my life.
You're good.
She's a mentor. If you want a mentor of that side of your life, she's the best. Can't
Yeah.
get any better than that.
There you go. The other relationship that we've referenced, and the relationship is incalculably important in your life on so many levels, is the relationship you had with Michael.
Yeah,
You know, the relationship you have with Susan is one relationship. The relationship you have with Michael is a different kind of relationship.
right,
No less, just but totally important and seminal to who you are.
right.
Talk about it.
Well, through the years, Little House, I think, more so than Bonanza, I got to know Michael better. And I always respected him. I always thought he was a genius. I loved working with him. We never had an argument. And it just, he was, they don't make them like him anymore. And he said, I'm going to write, he told Susan this, I'm going to write something for Kit to say at my service. But then he said, I don't think I will because he'd cry through it, and I don't want him to cry. So I arranged everything for the funeral. I called Berlin Olson, and I told him Mike had passed away, which upset him. And he was up somewhere on a fishing, hunting trip, and I gave him the date of the service, and I said, I'd like to have you speak. He says, I don't think I can get out of here. We flew in, and we've got no way of getting out until a certain date. They're going to come back and pick us up. And I said, well, that's the way it is. The next day he called. All he said was, I'll be there. And you knew there was going to be a crowd of people. I had to decide who could sit inside, who could sit outside. Some people were a little upset about sitting outside. They had speakers. And at the last moment, Nancy Reagan and Ronald Reagan wanted to be there. Well, now, if they sit here, they have to have a friend of theirs sit next to him. And I asked A.C. Lyles. He's everybody's friend.
Sure, sure.
And he's another great guy to sit. There was a Secret Service in front, Secret Service in back, Secret Service next to Ronald, and a Secret Service at the aisle at the start of the. So you lost 6 seats more. So, it's just, I was at the door because I knew everybody. I either said you're sitting in row. I mapped it out.
Yeah.
And I mapped out Susan and I, and Dennis Cord, who was Michael's manager, his manager at the time had another whole idea, which we threw out, and he got mad at me about it. We didn't like it. And we decided who should speak,
Yeah.
why they should speak. And I thought it was a beautiful service.
It was. It was.
And tough. A tough, tough day.
Yeah.
One thing, when go back to when we went to see Michael, and he was real bad on a Saturday morning. And I reached out, gave him a hug, and Sousa did the same thing, and he says, "Oh, I like that jacket." And then he says, "What do you think's going to happen in Afghanistan?" Here he is on his deathbed, and this is in '91, thinking about what's going to happen in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
I mean, his mind just clicked so much.
Yeah.
And then the one thing that, when he did pass away that day, Monday, people starting to put up ladders against the wall, trying to get over the wall. Traffic was a zoo on Bonsall Canyon. And we had done a number of shows in Malibu. We shot there, so I knew the captain. And I called him and told him the problem. And I said, "I don't want this leak to the press." But I said, "It's happened." But I said, "The people are just," he said, "Well, we can't close the street, but we sure as hell could keep them off his property. They have no business for it." And after, while after that, there's like 3 helicopters circling. And they kept it up until the one thing I did not want to have the helicopters see is Mike being carried out on a gurney. So at his house, I got a hold of his, he had a guy that worked the property, took care of the maintenance of the property. He had a split rail fence. And I worked with him. We took the fence apart, and I had him back a van. It was a nondescript van up onto the patio, so no one could ever see Michael going in the van. And that's what I didn't want.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It just, it was a tough, tough day. It shouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No worries. Kent, you've had your impact on so many people through the work you've done. You've touched people's lives that you'll never meet, and you've touched the lives of people who know you and love you and care about you, and really love you. How would you like to have, if you could shape the memories that people have of you, what would you want them to remember? How do you want to be remembered in your life for what the work you've done and the life you've lived?
Well, I have to say, not only the actors that I liked, but the crew was the most important in my life. And I respected what they could do and what they did. Johnny Buss, the laborer, said he'd run 20 miles to go to work if he had to. Just that kind of an attitude I respect out of people. I like people. I don't like phony people. I won't put up with that. I just will ignore it. But I'm a shy person, basically. But I do have my feelings. And I do respect other people's feelings. And I respected the crew and the cast that we had on every series that we did. Because Not one person can do it all. It's a combination of many, many people and their input into the show. The art director is just important as someone else. There's no one person that's better. Now the cast are different. Some actors you like better. I never hated an actor. You know, I thought some, or a director. I had a few directors you'll like this story. We're shooting a chaparral, and the scene is supposed to be up on a hill, and Leif Erikson on his horse is looking down on the encampment. And this director said, well, can we get him a little higher? And I said, well, we can get the camera higher, yes. I said, we have a parallel, and it'll go up 24 feet at 6 feet increments. And he says, oh, that's great. He says, we'll put Leif on his horse up on the parallel. And I said, what? I said, how do you expect him to get up there? Jump? Or should we just put the parallel beneath them and let him work up? You're out of your effing mind. I chewed him out. You know, a director like that, I don't know if he'd ever done a Western. I had another one that we were shooting a location high up in the rocks, down into a valley. And all of a sudden, nothing's happening. So I'd been up there once, I came down. I went back up and I said to the director, what's the matter? He says, well, the sun is in the right spot. And I said, what do you mean, the sun's right here? Oh, yes, but I've done my storyboard, and I have to follow my storyboard. And I have to start here. I can't start here and jump around. And I said, well, you're not going to work on this show again either. You know, you got to go. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like picking a location with a director. Where's your dead end? You know, you got to plan it out.
Yeah.
You always have to plan ahead.
Well, Ken, what would you hope the men and women who have worked with you through the years what would you hope their message or their best memory of you would be?
Have a good stiff drink. I haven't had one in 4 years, and I gave it up.
But you'd recommend that?
I would recommend that.
And you'd hope that your people would remember that?
Give me a toast.
Ken, I think that a lot of people are going to toast you, and they have been toasting you for years.
Yeah.
For the great work that you've done.
Thank
and
you.
It's such a pleasure to sit and chat with you.
Thank you.
For the Academy. Thank you, Ken.
Very much for pursuing all this and making it happen. I feel very humble. I do. Thank you.